Good morning. As we turn our minds to the Lord's Supper, I'd like us for a few moments to focus on the cross. How did it happen? The details are very limited. Had he traveled from his home in northern Africa, in which is what is now today modern Libya? Had he been traveling with his family to Jerusalem to come to the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, to take it with so many thousands of others? On his way into the city, was he impeded by the crowd that was coming out of the city? Or was he just somehow a part of the crowd? At some point, this man sees three other men carrying the instrument of their own death. One man, his head wreathed in thorny branches. The beam that he's carrying rubbing his raw back falls to the ground under the weight of this beam. The Roman soldiers in charge of these criminals quickly react to the fallen man. And they grab this bystander, this foreigner, and they say, "You take up the cross." Whether the bystander objected or not, it didn't matter. They pressed him into service such that he would carry this beam, this cross, outside the city to the place called Golgotha. We don't know a lot about Jesus' journey from Pilate to that hill outside the city. We know that there was a large group of people who followed him. There was a group of women who were mourning for him, to which he talked to them and said, "Don't weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children, because there are even worse days coming." And then Matthew, Mark, and Luke record this one, we might even call it obscure detail, that a man bears the cross of Jesus for him. Luke records it in this way: when they had led him away, they seized a man, Simon of Cyrene, coming in from the country, and placed on him the cross to carry behind Jesus. Why is this recorded? And why record the man's name? I mean, it would be you could so quickly do it, just say, and somebody carried his cross. But his name is mentioned. Mark takes it even a step further in his gospel, and he says, this Simon of Cyrene is the father of Alexander and Rufus. Very possible that Mark is writing in such a way that he knows his readers are going to know these people. It's possible that Simon and his sons became Christians and maybe were prominent in the work of the church in the first century. We don't know. But what we do know, what is certain, is that Simon carried the cross behind Jesus. Imagine the scene that he would have witnessed. Did the mob continue to follow Jesus and chant, "Crucify him, crucify him," and call out other abusive speech? Did the women continue to cry for Jesus? What were the discussions of the soldiers? Or did they have discussions? Or did they just maybe drive through with their whips these three men out of the city to be crucified? How many more times would Jesus stumble because of the pain, because of the blood loss, because of sheer exhaustion. When they arrived at that place of the skull, and Simon had finished his job, did he stay there and watch as the soldiers pounded the nails through Jesus' flesh and into the wood? You see, it is significant that Simon is carrying the cross, because we see God in the flesh, God incarnate, needs assistance at his moment of suffering. And he allows a man he created to help him carry this cross. And he's doing the very thing that Jesus taught his disciples. In Luke chapter 9, it is recorded for us that Jesus says, "If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake, he is the one who will save it." What's the meaning for us? We look at each gospel and it's just one verse. Why is it recorded? The Lord's Supper is not just a reminder of what Jesus did for us, but I think it is also a reminder of what we are to do. You see, Simon of Cyrene is showing us a picture of what discipleship is. Taking up a cross and following Jesus. There are many today who think that bearing your cross is just sort of carrying a difficult burden in life. People say, well, you know, we all have our cross to bear. But this means something so much more. Take up your cross means death, because that's what it meant for Jesus. If we are disciples of Jesus, then we are willing to live in such a way that our lives are shaped by and through the cross. That we are so associated with Jesus that his death becomes our death. His suffering becomes our suffering. His glory becomes our glory. That to take it up daily means that we die daily. In Philippians chapter 3 and verse 10, Paul, writing of the things that he has given up, he says, "That I may know him and the power of his resurrection, and may share his sufferings, becoming like him in his death." That's why Paul says, I've been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. See, as we join together in the Lord's Supper, and as we remember the sacrifice of our King and what he has done for us, it should also bring us and draw us to a point of reflection upon this past week, to evaluate our discipleship. How willing were we to die to self this past week and let Christ live through our thoughts, through our words, through our actions? As we eat the bread and drink the cup, I want us to put ourselves in Simon's shoes. Let us see ourselves behind Jesus as we carry that cross, because he is before us, carrying our sins.